Hey everyone, happy New Year, happy 2025. Just wanted to take a minute and share a little bit about what Atmosphere is. If you've clicked on the link or if you've come here looking for some support, or wondering, what the heck is this Atmosphere stuff? Let me share with you just kind of a little bit about what Atmosphere is. So myself and my son, my oldest son, are both in recovery from addiction, alcohol. Over 30 years. It almost killed me about 7 years ago. Went through a lot with my alcoholism. Kind of snuck up on me through the years. But that's only a small portion of the story. My son also struggled with an opiate addiction, starting with pills back in high school, all the way to a full-fledged heroin addiction. To, of course, everybody that was on fentanyl or on heroin eventually moved over to fentanyl because of the strength of it. My son was in an addiction for over a decade. So my addiction, my son's addiction, were both in recovery, quotes, right? Recovery from our addictions, but more importantly, we're in recovery from life itself, from a lot of the fears, the traumas, the things that we've been through that have created that other version of ourselves, if you will. So back when my son was struggling with his addiction, he did have a couple of stints of sobriety, and during one of those stints, he was talking to me about why things were always so chaotic, or why everybody's always mad, and why everybody's always arguing, why is everybody always ripping on each other, and why can't we just have a community where everybody just cares for each other and supports each other and is there for each other. Everybody can help each other grow their own food, and to share each other's anxieties and stresses and fears, and be able to have people to talk to that aren't judgmental and aren't going to tell you how to live your life, and all of those things. And so that seed got planted with me a few years back, and in the meantime, I would almost die from alcoholism. I would turn jaundice a couple of times, end up in the hospital with hepatitis of the liver. And so I was in bad shape, and I sobered up, like I said, almost 7 years ago. But it wasn't until a good year into my sobriety that I really woke up. And a lot of that was because of my son's addiction. So yeah, I found sobriety. I went to treatment. Well, I went detox, went to a long detox, relapsed from that, but found it within myself to quit after that. And so I found myself white knuckling it. I didn't know what that meant at the time. I thought I just needed to quit drinking. That was the end of it, right? But that wasn't the case. About a few months into my recovery, I really went on this rampage to start helping my son and trying to get him sober now, right? I was sober. Let's do this together, right? We were gonna, I was on this rampage to fix him, and I took him to California to dry out, and we were gonna do this together, and he was going to get on Suboxone, and we had this plan, or I had this plan, right? And he was a mess back then, and he was not interested at all in what I had to say, or taking him to California, any of that stuff. He wasn't wanting any of it, and I didn't understand why. And I did kind of get him clean, at least for a little while after that, but he would relapse shortly after. And I was just, I loved my kids so much. It really broke my heart to see my son struggling so much. And then I looked around, and my other kids were struggling as well with anxiety and depression and their own addictions and things. And it was like eye-opening for me, as my brain was starting to recalibrate and fire again in a new way. Outside of my addiction, I started to get this clarity, which was great, except I didn't know how to help my son. And so I was asking, like, anybody that could help me. I was trying to learn, but I broke down finally. And I remember this. I was on the golf course with my son Michael, and I was just struggling with Jesse. Just had another episode where it felt like he was going to overdose, and we thought maybe he did, and we found him on the ground, type of thing. And so it was really scary again, and he had relapsed again, and so it was really bad for us. And I couldn't get out of my head. I was always just worried and stressed and thinking he's going to overdose, and just, it was driving me crazy. My anxiety was through the roof. I was just a mess. It's tough to be around. My poor son Michael was with me through a lot of this, and I was a wreck, and I wasn't going to drink. I made a promise to my daughter, my family. I said I wasn't going to drink anymore. So I wasn't going to do that. Even if life sucked, I was going to not drink. And so that wasn't an option, but I couldn't do this. And I didn't know how to deal with any of this stuff. And I just cried out to God one day, and I was just like, man, I'm sorry I haven't been paying attention. And I turned away from God and religion and the church and all that stuff for a lot of good reasons. But I turned away from that, the spiritual side of myself, and altogether. So for me to cry out to God like that, I was in a desperate place. And what I got back, surprised me, because I didn't get the answer. I didn't get like any kind of, magic pill, or, take him to this clinic, or take him to that clinic, or, if you do this, it's going to change him. It wasn't like that. It was all of a sudden I got this like super clarity that allowed me to look at myself. And all of a sudden I went from blaming Jesse, blaming the world, blaming society, blaming everything, everybody and everything, to looking right at myself. And man, how heartbreaking that was. Because as soon as I started to look at myself, the way that my brain works is I get to the root cause of things, and that's what made me good at being a project manager in corporate. But I was now like looking at myself, and I was like, am I controlling? Am I narcissistic? Am I some of those things that maybe my son was pointing out to me about this new atmosphere? Was I creating chaos? Was I creating the fear? Was I creating an environment that my son didn't want to come back to? Oh, shit. Oh. So it wasn't about me wanting to fix him. It was about him not wanting to come back to an environment that was worse than the drugs. So he was escaping from a world that was too chaotic and was full of hatred and judgment and anger and frustration and anxiety and depression, and it caused a reactionary person. Instead of being able to respond to life, I was complete emotion, and always needing to have the right answer, always needing to be right, always needing to tell people what they need to do. All of a sudden I recognized that, and I recognized that in where I came from, and so it was like, oh shit, what did I cause in my family? I created this environment. But because I was able to see it clearly, and it was a pattern, I can see that I can reverse that pattern. And if I did that, and I became the loving, compassionate, empathetic dad, then they'd want to be with me, and they would want to share their most intimate things with me. And so that gave me hope, right? I went from like this pure, like, anxiety driven panic attack, nervous breakdown, to laughing about it, because it was so clear to me that I couldn't control anything outside of working on me. And that is how you heal. You create a new environment, a new atmosphere that he wants to come back to. And that means it starts with me, baby, right? I have to be more loving with all of my kids, with not just that. It doesn't work that way, right? I can't just be good loving with my kids and not with the rest of the world, because it doesn't work that way, right? It's the core of it's my anxiety. So if my anxiety is high, man, I'm reacting to the world. So I may be trying really hard not to snap at my kids, but internally I'm triggered every time they do something irritating or something like that, you know? And so I realized that. And it was like, whoop, okay, I need to create this atmosphere, this new atmosphere. I needed to bring my son back to a loving environment that had their arms out and their hand out and not full of judgment, and telling him what he needed to do and how he needed to do it. And all of a sudden, man, when I took that pressure off of trying to fix him, all of a sudden, he started coming. The door started opening. And he started to recognize that I was making these changes in my life. Now, all of a sudden, I wasn't as angry. I wasn't, I left that corporate job. I was actually working. I got a job in a treatment center. And I walked away from a big salary to do that, because this is how important it was to me, right? And so now I'm working in a treatment center. I'm working on myself. I'm doing fun things. I'm getting my family out of the house, out of the rooms, because I know I got to attract them out. Not tell them, you got to get out of your room, you got to stop playing video games, you got to stop doing all that stuff. I had to attract them out. So what did I do? I started doing fun shit again. I started hiking, I started biking, I started snowboarding, I started playing volleyball again. I mean, bike riding was so fun again because I was working on myself. So now I'm not as anxious, I'm not as stressed, I'm not worried about, things I can't control anymore. And I'm loving it. And I'm healing. And it's like, oh, this is what healing is all about. And next thing you know, my son is asking for help. Man, secret sauce, right? There was something there. Now, has it been easy? Oh, hell no. Man, I am triggered. When you first form this awareness, you realize you're triggered all the time. And I was a mess. And I had a long way to go. It wasn't about the alcohol. It wasn't about the addiction part of it. Sure, I used that to cope. But holy crap, it was about working on myself. And when I started to see the environment and the people that I attracted into that world, I could not continue to do that. I couldn't attract those people into those toxic people, which was me. And anything that I attracted that in to my family and surrounded my family with that. So they're around that toxicity. So I needed some boundaries. I needed to focus on my family. I needed to work on myself, and I couldn't be triggered all the time. And I realized I was triggered. I was triggered by my family. I was triggered by friends. I was triggered by people that were drinking and being ignorant and things like I used to be. And now I started getting triggered about narcissistic people and controlling people and things like that. So everything was changing for me. So I needed those boundaries. I needed to find that internal peace. I needed to be by myself a lot, and which I did. I was with my dog and I was out in nature a lot, all by myself, working on this stuff, realizing where my mind is going, and bringing myself back and learning how to meditate and calm the mind and bring that peace and love internally and find it within myself. And then all of a sudden the creativity started flowing, and the ideas started flowing, and then I started realizing that my kids are, I can feel their pain, I can feel when they're struggling. So I can be there for them, because I've been there I can connect with them. I can help them through anxiety attacks. I can help them through being stuck in a pattern that is causing them pain. Recognizing their attachment issues and codependency stuff that I also recognized within myself. And so I was able to not only get close with my kids, but super close to my kids, because I was rebuilding that trust with them, and I was learning. I was learning about addiction, which to me wasn't what I thought it was. You know, addiction is only the outcome, right? It's the effects of the cause. So when you start digging into the root cause of things, you start to realize it's not about the drugs or the alcohol. It started a long time ago. And it's about the environment that I created as a result of my own mental health issues, my own need to control, my own need to fix, to be right all the time, to be passive aggressive as a ways of communicating. I needed to learn how to communicate differently and get past those triggers and stop judging my own kids. Holy cow, learn how to love unconditionally. And so I had to learn how to love myself through all of that. And all of a sudden, my son Jesse, because he already knew this in his heart of hearts, he already knew this. He already knew this years ago, right? He was giving me the blueprint to help him heal. And I finally got it. And my son has been clean for over a year now off of fentanyl, and is doing amazing because he already understands this stuff, that he started working on this stuff immediately. And he's really quiet. He doesn't open up a lot, but he is working through those fears. And now he's becoming a coach. We've been talking about doing some life coaching together as a father and son, because we can really help families. I mean, my whole family has been impacted by this, and my whole family is deeply invested in helping other people as well, because it's impacted them so much. And they could see it in others and other families, that we want to be able to help as many people as we can break these generational patterns for themselves and their families, because we are surrounded by addiction, we're surrounded by mental health issues, we're surrounded by separation of parents and kids. Even if you live together, you're so individualized that you don't share the most intimate, most important things with each other. And that's what we're learning, and that's what we're helping other people to heal from, and other families. So we want to be there for you guys, and I hope this touches you in a good way, in a positive way. I know it's hard to look at yourself, but if you're struggling, that's where the journey starts, is to be able to look internally at yourself, look at your own fears, your own insecurities, your dark shadow side, and then you can start to unravel it layer at a time. And every layer that you identify, you peel off of that trauma or that fear, life gets better in that same degree. It's pretty cool how it works. My hands are doing this, by the way. But you can see how the possibilities are endless if I continue to work on this stuff, because I'm not perfect. It doesn't feel, it's not like, oh, I'm enlightened, I'm awoke, no, it's this, I get it, I have a lifetime of this journey, and I can never heal enough, if you will, because life just keeps getting better and better, and it creates this, and my intuition comes back to me, and I'm able to actually use my intuition to guide me through life now. And that means I'm going to make better choices. And so life gets incredibly, incredibly better. And so from year to year, we should see vast improvements, because we're putting in the work. And it's that work to form that awareness and to heal from our own fears and our own traumas. And it's not easy, baby, and you need a community. You need a community to help be honest with you. Because, man, if you're looking around and you don't have a lot of friends, or people don't want to be around you, your kids don't want to talk to you, they don't want to talk to you on the phone, or they don't want to be around you, it's time to look at yourself, because maybe people aren't being honest with you. My son was able to be honest with me and say, Dad, you're the only one mad. You're the only one mad out of everybody. And I was when he called me out on that, I was enraged because he had relapsed, you know? And I caught myself and I was like, shit, he's right. He's like, I am the only one mad. Why is that? You know? And it just gave me that about face, that ability to kind of look at myself. Why do I get that way? Why do I get irritated? Why do I get defensive? Why do I need to be right all the time? Why do I compare myself to everybody all the time, right? And so the journey had just begun, and it got a long way to go. I got a long way to go, but my family is learning how to take their lives back, understanding how I impacted them, how being in a codependent, having a codependent parents, how that's impacted them, so they don't repeat the cycles themselves, right? So my kids are learning about their own fears that their dad may have created in them, right? And now they're able to talk about that with me because I can see it. I can see I created that in them. And so I'm not beating myself up, and they're not beating me up when they're telling me about it, because they're healing and I'm healing, right? Our communication, our trust is now, getting solid again. And I just want that for everybody. And Jesse, this is like his passion, is this atmosphere and creating a new atmosphere for people, because man, we have seen the dark of the dark, and we also know you can't see the light without the darkness. And thank God we have that clarity, and we can help people. So I hope that you join the journey with us. Happy 2025.